What is a ghost? What does it mean to be haunted? It was early on a Sunday morning, and Julie Holroyd, one of the visitor assistants at Temple Newsome House, was on cleaning duty before the house opened to the public. She was by herself and was vacuuming a carpet in one of the lower corridors near the kitchens. This was a task she'd done regularly, and she was lost in her own thoughts. A movement caught her eye, and she looked up. There, standing at the end of the corridor, was a young woman. Sightings of the White Lady have been few and far between. She is reputed to be Lady Jane Grey, who some claim fell so in love with Lord Darnley and was so grief-stricken when he married Mary, Queen of Scots, that she hanged herself. Another infamous ghost associated with Temple Newsome is that of Phoebe Gray. After the victorious Battle of Blenheim in August 1704, there were many celebrations throughout the country. At Temple Newsome, there was to be music, dancing, and feasting. Working below with her as a general servant was one William Collinson. He'd had his eye on Phoebe for some time, and perhaps he saw the festivities as an ideal time to make a move. The story is that Phoebe was taking a hot drink to Nanny Backhouse in the nursery, something she did most nights. Candle in one hand, hot drink in the other, Phoebe made her way up the stairs unknowing that a fellow servant was waiting for her. Drink had made him bolder, and as he hid in the shadows, he imagined what he and Phoebe would shortly do. As Phoebe hurried past, he jumped out at her. Some say that he only wanted to steal a kiss, others that he intended much more. She screamed and struggled in his arms and then went limp. He had killed her. In a panic and not knowing what to do, he remembered there was an old Tudor well near the kitchens. Carrying and dragging the dead girl's body along the dark and deserted passages, he heaved off the iron grating covering the well and proceeded to drop Phoebe in. He then made off into the night and left the body to be discovered by other staff the next morning. Collinson was arrested and found guilty of Phoebe Gray's murder. He was subsequently hanged on York's Tyburn gallows. Members of staff working late at night in Temple Newsome have said that they have often heard the sound of muffled cries or of something being dragged along the passageway. Occasionally, there has also been heard a distant splash, as if something has been dropped into the water. All of these sightings have occurred in the area where Phoebe was said to have been murdered. The Blue Lady is perhaps the most famous of all the Temple Newsome apparitions. People have recorded seeing a hazy blue female figure or orbs of blue light in various rooms and places around the house. Even Lord Halifax, the father of the Honourable Edward Wood, claims to have seen this ghostly figure one night. It is supposed to be Mary Ingram, the granddaughter of Sir Arthur Ingram. The story goes that Mary had been visiting relatives in York. For the occasion, she was wearing a beautiful necklace that her grandfather had given her. On the way home, somewhere near the village of Garforth, her carriage was waylaid by either a lone highwayman or a band of thugs, depending on which version of the story is being told. Whichever it was, the outcome was that she was robbed of all of her possessions, including her favourite necklace. She managed to break free from her attackers and ran the rest of the way home to Temple Newsome, about 3 miles away. Arriving home, she was distraught and was put straight to bed, though the experience left her deeply traumatized. She trusted nobody, jumped at every shadow and noise, Her behavior started to grow more and more strange, sometimes found picking cushions apart as if looking for something. She scuttled timidly around the house, taking her possessions and hiding them in secret places that only she would know, under floorboards and inside walls. Her paranoia grew and she retreated more into herself. She spoke little and refused to eat, beginning to waste away, and despite all the efforts of doctors, she had died. It is her ghost that is supposed to have been seen in her blue dress, endlessly searching for the possessions that she had hidden away. During a period of renovation in the house some years ago, small pieces of jewelry and other objects were found beneath floorboards and inside the walls. This time the facts do support the story. However, there are some fundamental flaws to this story. Lady Jane Grey was born in 1536 and would have been 9 years old when Darnley was born in 1545. For Mary and Phoebe, while the two girls did live and breathe in Temple Newsom's halls, what is failed to be mentioned is their ages. Mary was 14 and Phoebe 16 at the time of their deaths. What do teenage girls like to do? I wonder if Mary liked to sew. The rhythmic pattern of the needle and thread stitching pictures together, art made from her own hands. Did she try to mend dresses, and did her mother stop her? Say that it was a job for servants, that mending is a necessity and her kind only sews for fun. I wonder if she liked to dance, and were the halls of her home always filled with parties? Did she dance until her feet were sore? Did she wish she had worn comfier shoes? The stories are always different. That she came from York, Garforth, Barrowby. My favourite is that she was coming back from a sleepover. Exchanging gossip, braiding hair, painting nails, a night that would make any coming-of-age movie jealous. Did she show off her necklace? She must have. Pearls were hard to come by, but the value is not in their price. The necklace was a gift from her grandfather, a christening present. Never knowing a life without it, never having anything else to remember him by, he died when she was 4. I imagine the memories she had of him were almost non-existent. But I like to think that whatever was left were held in the weight of those pearls. For a child, it must have been the most precious thing she owned. After it happened, she would have woken up on a clean bed, in clean silk, but with no memory of it. Did she feel her bare neck and become confused? Did she ask for her mother, who would rush to be by her side, who would begin to cry? Did Mary cry too? She must have done. After all, that's what children do when they lose their favorite things. She fell asleep wearing an ivory nightgown. She won't have known what they buried her in. What a shame, they would have said. They would have said the same to Phoebe. Though a servant, Phoebe was happy. She had a good job, a good family. There wasn't much room for leisure, but she learned to love small pleasures of life. She loved flowers, watching them bloom in every colour under the sun. I imagine she played cards and was good at it too, her skill making up for her illiteracy. Her first worthy opponent would have been him. Will always was good to her. Not too much older, only 10 years. She knew girls her age who'd married much, much older. The other girls used to say he fancied Phoebe. She always thought they were teasing. She didn't see him like that, so how could he see her? Months passed, and like the coming summer months, their friendship only grew warmer. The war still raged on, but a victory had put the world 2 steps forward. At least that was what they said. Celebrations were in order, and Phoebe was so incandescently happy. It had been too long since there'd been a party, and though she would wear an apron and serve wine, the Ingrams let her dance. They were good like that. Kind. He said we should celebrate together. So Phoebe agreed. Between serving guests, he slipped Phoebe wine and danced with her, twirling her round and round. The clock struck 7 and duties were calling. The servants' stairs were dark. No windows to let the light seep in. Even in the daytime, you'd have to bring a candle. Mr. Ingram always talked about getting them fixed. Phoebe always wondered what it would take to finally do it. She was so focused on her safety that she didn't hear the shallow breathing growing greater as the stairs descended. You already know what happens next. I cannot imagine how he could have dragged her. It must have been so easy. Her bones were so light, as children always are. He was hanged, but that did not bring Phoebe back. Mr. Ingram fixed the stairs and put a window in. Now the sun shines constantly. What a shame. What a shame, for Phoebe was such a lively, pretty 16-year-old serving girl. Poor Phoebe, what a shame. It could not be helped that Will was rough and ready. What a shame that Mary turned into a creature, scuttling around the house, becoming strange. At least her ghost is attractive. Poor Mary. Or Catherine, whatever her name may be. But what good is a name when it's a tourist attraction? A family member not on the family tree, but on the map of things to see. A thing to see, to recreate for children, to scream and cry and laugh at on Halloween. To spin rhymes of killing a child when only dying at 14. To be laughed at as a Twitter account and wrote of to joke about their deaths. If they do walk the halls as ghostly children, I imagine they miss their mothers. That they wish they'd had more time. That Mary had listened to her mother's pleas to eat, slept when she was wrapped in her arms. Perhaps then she could have had a happy ending. Grown older, taller, become a fine lady. One everyone would be proud and envious of. Phoebe would likely have stayed a servant, but her mother would have watched her grow, watched her fall in love on her own terms, had a life all of her own, moulded with her own 2 hands, attended her wedding and not her funeral. All houses wherein women have lived and died are haunted houses. Through the open doors, the harmless phantoms of their errands glide with feet that make no sound upon the floors. We meet them at the doorway, on the stair, along the passages they come and go, impalpable impressions on the air, a sense of something moving to an end.